everybody, it is the Lawn Gnome, and welcome back for a very unique standout episode of DCU Update. In case you're new to my channel, let me just say welcome. It is a pleasure to have you, and for all of you returning, I am glad that you are back to discuss another installment from the DC Universe animated film library. So, we have reached a very interesting point in the world of DC animation, because today we are talking about the final installment of the DC animated storyline known as the Tommorowverse, with the third installment of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that, of course, means Part 3. So, of course, in case you haven't seen the previous two episodes, Crisis on Infinite Earths was a landmark achievement from DC Comics back in 1985, created by the greats that are Marv Wolfman and the late George Perez, and we get to the final point where the heroes of the DC multiverse come face to face with the Anti-Monitor in regards to stopping it once and for all from destroying the multiverse. So, we definitely get some very interesting things in this movie, because now that the story is complete, even though it is not page for page accurate, it definitely took a very different turn for some very subtle purposes, I think. And I think what really stands out about this movie is we see some very unique pieces of the DC multiverse that we don't see in the comic book because of the fact that this is the DC animated universe, so we see things from the DC animated multiverse. We saw some true callbacks that DC and DC animated fans can truly appreciate, including a scene that has been all over the internet, and that is the small scene from the Bruce Timm Batman animated series and Justice League universe, and this is also officially on record the final recording of the voice of Kevin Conroy as Batman, and of course Mark Hamill does return to voice the Joker, because as Mark Hamill said many, many times in his career, he will only voice the Joker if Kevin Conroy voices Batman, and this was the very last time that these two masterminds of voice talent will ever be able to do that again. And did this movie surpass my expectations? Yes and no. I mean, I will definitely say, as recently reading Crisis on Infinite Earths, it definitely is a little bit of a different story, but all the major core elements of the comic book source material are found in this film. Of course, we saw those two iconic deaths, which were definitely done very differently in the comic book as opposed to the animated film, but we still get those iconic images. I mean, it's on the DVD covers and Blu-ray cover, so there's really no spoiler, and it's the famous picture of Superman holding a dead Supergirl, because clearly we know what that means. Yes, Supergirl died in Crisis on Infinite Earths for the greater good. And that's exactly what we get here, and it is, I think, just as impactful as it was in the comic books. But we also get a very interesting thing that I think was very positive for this animated film, and that was the element of John Constantine in this movie. And the truth of the matter is, I really now need to go back into the DC Tommorowverse story and look at all these films to actually see where John Constantine does in fact show up in all of these movies, because we find out how the Tommorowverse was created and how the multiverse was created in this animated storyline, and it goes back to the original DC New 52 storyline that went from Justice League Flashpoint Paradox to Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, and yes, I will also include that Constantine DC Showcase short, because that was sort of the conclusion from the main storyline. So we find out that it was because of the fact that John Constantine told his Flash to go back and start anew, the multiverse was born. So I got to applaud them on that. I thought that that was such a clever idea, and I loved the fact that it actually officially connects these two story arcs. So it really does feel much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This really is DC's decently done animated universe. And I say decently done and not perfectly or remarkably done, simply because of the fact that the Tommorowverse as a whole was not wonderful. There were some ups and there were some downs, but there were more downs than ups. There were some movies that I truthfully did not enjoy. There were movies that I wish that could be better, but I was so scared about the announcement of the 3-part Crisis on Infinite Earth story because I was just hoping that they were going to do Wolfman and Perez justice. And even though there were major changes, I think that overall the films did a good job. And I really did appreciate where it all ended. So that, I think, is where we can go from here and address the most important thing. Yes, it ended. The story had a nice little bow on it and finished up. And I know we do have an animated adaptation of Watchmen being split into 2 parts, one part coming out in just about a month, and one, I think, coming out in early of 2025. That's it, guys. I think we may have officially seen the official conclusion of the DC animated film library. We're talking about a film library that started back in 2007 and ran for almost 20 years. That's quite a surprise. And quite impressive, as a matter of fact, because I look back at all of these movies that have come out, and there are some truly great animated classics. I mean, I will say that Batman Under the Red Hood may be one of the greatest Batman films ever made. It really is a wonderful film. And not just that, we also saw the DC animated original film library, and we got to see such wonderful films like Batman: The Return of the Caped Crusader, and a movie that we just recently talked about on That's Comical, Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So there are some true animated gems that have been given to us from Warner Brothers and DC Animation for the last almost 20 years. But now we apparently have reached the end, because San Diego Comic-Con just happened, and they didn't have any announcements of any future direct-to-DVD or Blu-ray films, but they did announce a brand new animated series coming out at the end of 2024 called Creature Commandos. And Creature Commandos is the first installment of James Gunn's new DC universe. And he specifically said that when he took over the DC franchise that the films and the television shows and animation were all going to connect in some way. So, what does that mean for me? I mean, look, we still have a 5th season of Harley Quinn coming out. We now officially have a spin-off of Harley Quinn called Kite Man Hell Yeah, which I'm also watching. And I even decided to dive back into My Adventures with Superman. And Bruce Timm's brand new Batman animated series just started on Amazon Prime. So this segment on my channel is definitely not dead, and I'm very excited to go back over to That's Comical and discuss the Crisis films with Cammie, as we usually do. But I have a strange feeling that this may be the last DC animated film library physical media that I purchase, and I will be glad to say collection complete. I will say that I had a fun ride. I will say that it has been fun talking about all of these films with you guys on YouTube. And I will just say thank you for joining me on this DC animated journey. But as I said, there's still more in store, so we will definitely be back soon. But at this point, I would like for you to put your comments in the box below. Let me hear your thoughts of Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3. I thought that as a whole, the film definitely was enjoyable. I definitely want to give it a rewatch. And I will be looking forward to the next DC animated project to talk about with you here. But in the meantime, I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, feel free to leave a comment. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to be up to date with our latest videos. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next one. Actions speak louder than words.